Your quads can contribute to hip extension if we have the right things in place. And when we have a squat that looks like this, it can be hard to tell what the exact problem is, but figuring out for Eric led to some huge technical improvements in just 2 weeks. Taking it all the way home will need a little bit more time for strength to come up, but today we're going to get into what we did to see the immediate changes and what we're going to keep doing to ensure that his squat keeps building. Because when a lifter has a forward tip like this, what's typically taught is that it is a quad problem. Because if the quads can't push hard enough, that lifter is going to tip forward into a good morning to put more work into the hips and back so they still can finish the lift. But that is not what is going on here. And before we talk about that, we need to look at the relationship between the quads and the hamstrings while squatting, because both muscles are going to have an influence on both the knee and hip. And if we get them working together, some really cool stuff starts to happen. So the quads are a knee extensor, right? Well, mostly, but not quite. The recfem also crosses the hip joint and acts as a secondary hip flexor. The hamstrings are a knee flexor and hip extensor, but because the knee is extending during a squat, the hams aren't doing much, right? Again, not quite. Because if we are looking at a squat, what we need to do is think about what happens to the hamstrings when the knees and hips extend simultaneously. But before we do that, if you're stuck in your training and don't know what you're doing with your programming, your technique, your accessories, your intent, hit the link below and join the team, because I want to give you individualized coaching so that you can know exactly what it is that you need to be doing to drive progress as quickly and efficiently as possible. Prices are going to be going up from $49 a month to $99 a month on April 1st, so sign up now to lock in that lower rate. Obviously, the big movers are going to be the quads driving that knee extension, and the adductor magnus and glutes are going to be producing most of the hip extension. But that doesn't mean that we just want the hamstrings sitting there all slack and doing nothing. Now, it is true that a typical raw squat, not one like this example, but one with that simultaneous knee and hip extension, the hamstrings won't be concentrically contracting and shortening. Because if they did concentrically contract and shorten, we wouldn't make it to the top of a squat with a locked knee. But we also don't want the hams to be totally slack and able to lengthen, because if ham strength is there and they provide a hard isometric contraction as the knee extends, that's when that cool stuff actually starts to happen. Again, the knee needs to extend to get to the top of the squat. And if we were looking at knee extension in isolation, the hamstring's insertion on the tibia is going to be pulled further away from its origin on the pelvis. But a squat isn't a leg extension, and it's definitely not an isometric movement. So what's going to happen if the hamstrings are contracting against the knee extension forces during a squat? The knee extension is still going to be trying to pull the hamstring insertion further from its origin, but if there is enough hamstring tension, the hamstring isn't going to yield to that knee extension, and the force created by the quads in knee extension will be transferred through the hamstring, allowing the quads through the hamstring isometric contraction to contribute to hip extension, because the quads are pulling on the knee's pulling on the hamstrings pulls on the pelvis, quads make hip extension. The hamstrings don't need to be super strong for this to happen, but the stronger that they are, the more the quads can help with the whole picture on squats, which is really kind of neat. Now, we got to go back to Eric's squat so we can talk about what is happening here. What you need to pay attention to is where that tip forward happens in his range of motion, because out of the bottom, his quads are able to drive him up pretty hard. It's not until he's higher in the movement and the hip extension moment arm of the hamstring ramps up that he tips forward. And it looks an awful lot like that tip is happening because his hamstrings are yielding to the forces required to sustain that simultaneous knee-hip extension. Then he crumples through his torso to make the levers friendly enough for him to be able to finish the squat. Now, when I was looking at this, I did cheat a little bit to confirm that it was hamstrings, because I asked him what his deadlift looks like, and his deadlift is definitely screaming of hamstrings not really being in the picture. So what did we do to see the almost immediate technical improvements on his squat, and what are we going to keep doing to ensure that he keeps improving? The first step was teaching him how to create and use hamstring tension during his squat. For that, I got him to run a squat morning. The goal here is to push your hips back until you feel hamstring stretch, hamstring tension, and then you're going to try to carry that tension down to the hole by leg curling yourself into the quads. After that, you just stand up. If you're doing it right and loading the hams well, not tipping forward will happen automatically for you. And to reinforce the skill of using hamstrings during a squat, as a warm-up and away from the gym, I'm getting him to do bodyweight pulsed bottom end squats. Here, we're going to squat down to the bottom, again trying to curl ourselves there with the hamstrings to come up 3 to 4 inches, try to feel ham tension, curl ourselves back down, and repeat until those hamstrings are pumping. And for Eric, just learning to use his hamstrings better will bring up their strength eventually, but we can do a lot better than eventually. And the only problem with this is that you guys know how much I love GHRs, but he was already doing them. So I asked him for a video to see what they looked like, and although they are not terrible, how he has it set up, especially with that triangular flat pad, it was stopping him from getting much of any real hamstring work in. So I asked him to slide the pad a little bit closer into the foot plate so we can set up more directly on top of it, which gave him instantly way harder leverages and made it way shittier on his hamstrings. Now the goal is going to be getting himself to the point where he's strong enough to leg curl all the way to the top where his torso is vertical, and once that's doable, we just keep building it up by adding load. And for now, that is going to be more than enough to take care of those hamstrings. And the next step is going to be chipping away at his brace so we can get out of the habit of having that little crumple on the way up. And if you guys want me paying this much attention to your lifts so that we can come up with a plan to get you doing exactly what you need to drive progress as quickly and efficiently as possible, hit the link below and join the team. New join prices are going to be going up from $49 a month to $99 a month on April 1st. So sign up now to lock in that lower rate.